Everyone to the Union Township Board of Trustees meeting, working session. If you could go ahead, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, perfect. And then, Mr. Campbell, please let the record reflect that all three trustees are present. And before I begin, I'll just remind everyone that it looks like we've got two items to talk about tonight on the agenda, and we do encourage public participation. Ms. Ayers, do we have comment cards back there?
I have not seen them. Did anyone have comment cards they wanted to turn in?
Oh, no. I meant, do we have them?
Yeah,
back?
they're in the back.
Okay, perfect. So if anyone would like to comment, no sweat, please just fill out one of those comment cards, and then we will collect those right before we get to public comments. And we just ask that you try to limit to 5 minutes. But, so the first item on the agenda looks like it is our Klepper Park Playground Equipment. And we will begin with our Playground and Park and Recreations Committee Chairman, Mr. Rich Clisson. Come on up, sir.
Thank you all for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Rich, for being
Looking
here.
forward
Appreciate
to
you, sir.
presenting this information to you guys. First of all, thank you for having the Park and Recreation Commission. I think it's a great thing for the community, great thing for community involvement. I think I can speak for all of my co-board members, colleagues, whatever, that we're excited about the future of Union Township, and we're excited about where the parks and recreation can go. Mrs. Ayers has already got a list of different events the township is going to put on this summer and out throughout the fall, and I think it's a great thing. And hopefully we can spark a lot of community involvement and get people to start enjoying some of our local recreation.
Love it.
So we started by brainstorming and prioritizing, trying to figure out the best way to revitalize our parks and recreation and to bring people back to our community, to their community. How could we make the biggest impact? It's basically what we had decided. Parks is a big thing, recreation is a big thing, being frugal with your money is a big thing. So where did we want to start? And I know that we had some money already granted to us by the state of Ohio, $125,000 to improve the park at Klepper, along with some other improvements that are going to be made and some other grant money. That's a different project. I think that's going out for bid soon. But essentially, when we looked at the three parks that Union Township does have, Veterans Park is our flagship park. That's where most of the amenities are. That's where most of the attractions are. And that's, quite frankly, where most of the people are. If you drive past Union Township or Veterans Park, I live across the street from there. I see it every day. It's full all the time. And that's kind of what we wanted to bring to the other parks in the area. And we thought the best way to do that was to improve the usability for the children in the community. So, Mrs. Ayers, I know, has reached out to some community partners. We've been trying to get some involvement in that area. I don't think that that's come to fruition yet, but it is something that we are cognizant of, and we are looking for donations or help and support from local businesses. So the new play set, we had several options to choose from. We were looking for something that was all-inclusive for children of all ages, activities for those that are less fortunate, both physically and developmentally, shade for parents, nature and natural activities, not just slides and swings, but we wanted it to be inviting and something that was going to attract people. We looked at, like I said, many options. The lower end cost, brace yourselves for sticker shock, the lower end cost was about $380,000, and that was essentially to replace a new set with essentially what's there, not anything much more than what's currently there. On the upper end of that, you're closer to $600,000. Looking at, we understand the need to be responsible, but like I said, we have three parks and we were trying to figure out the best way to improve all of the parks, or to at least get more involvement with all of the parks. Klepper Park is the biggest land size for the township. Let's see, the set that is going to be taken down at Klepper Park to replace is going to be moved over to Mount Lookout Park. So included in this cost is going to be transferring that equipment to the new park. So we'll be making an improvement also out at Mount Carmel. And then we'll have basically 3 of the parks that are attractive and usable and people can come and see. So the one that we were proposing, you can see some of the slides up here on the screen. It's a giant set. It's got a lot of great features on it. The flooring is going to either be, what we propose would be either a poured-in-place rubber cushioned pavement or a cushioned turf pavement. The cushioned turf pavement, believe it or not, is about $56,000 more than the poured-in-place rubber. Both floorings come with a the poured-in-place has a 12 to 15-year useful life. The turf has a 10 to 12-year useful life. Both have similar maintenance costs. Both floorings carry a 5-year warranty. There's a 15-year warranty on the play set, and the difference in, the 2 prices are the poured-in-place is $540,000 and the turf is $596,000. That includes the flooring and the play set for the entire unit. If we scroll through some more of these pictures, you'll see that there's not just the play set itself. There are shade pavilions, there are benches, there are other features that go along with it, areas for their parents to come and sit and not be sitting out in the sun, spots for smaller children, parents with smaller children. There's individual activities for kids that are 2 years and younger, and 2 years to 4 years, and 4 to 6, and 6 to 8. There's different age groups in different areas of the park. But it's essentially what we felt was like the best option to bring to you. We didn't think it was worth spending $380,000 to get basically what we have already. We are getting $125,000 in grant money, and we felt like this was the best option. So we're looking for your support in going with the poured-in-place rubber. I believe that Matt can speak to more of that if you like, but we felt like that was the best option maintenance-wise and cost-wise. So we look forward to hearing your deliberation and hopefully getting some approval and moving forward with our first project.
Mr. Glisson, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that presentation, by the way, very much. And gentlemen, just to set the table a little bit so you understand everything, this is strictly for Klepper Park, not Veterans Park, just so you both understand that. And I will also say this as well. The Park and Recreations Committee, you both know, these are citizens of our community. They live in Union Township, completely volunteer basis, and they're meeting about once a month regularly. And they have put a lot of time and energy, and they have, Mr. Taylor presented several options, and I know that they picked and chose from all the best options available for them to come up with this presentation. So just want to set the table, and then with that being said, Mr. Vice Chairman, if you have any questions at all.
Yeah, I'm confused about something. Mr. Taylor, unless I dreamt this, I think it was like a year ago, it was when Corey was here, if I'm not mistaken. We had a grant through the capital budget from the state to purchase playground equipment for Klepper Park, which I thought we approved. Does that sound familiar at all, or is this part of this, or what's up with that? Or am I just making this up?
Mr. Becker, may I know you directed the question to Mr. Taylor, but can I speak on that? So that's the community development block grant funding. And staff, you can correct me if I didn't say anything here wrong, but community development block grant funding, that was something that multiple times prior to when you did come on board, I would see flooding and puddles and torn and ripped equipment at Klepper Park. And at the time, I'd said something to Corey Wright, and it was, frankly, an announcement was put out for the community development block grant funding in December of 2020. You started January 21st, 21, right? It was December of 2020, and I asked Corey, can we put together an application for this community development block grant funding, because that should be an acceptable location. And that's what started it. So that's part of what you're asking.
Yeah.
Is
that is it. Now you mentioned that was it. Yes.
That was to support us, supporting it, and the final submission in about the February timeframe or so was when it had to be firm, and then we received the award of it, and so that goes through a function of working with the county, working with the economic development for what they recommend and what they support up. And Mr. Taylor, then if you want to plug any additional details, but overall, that is your question.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
To answer it, a little bit of both. It is some of the state capital improvement, it is some of the CD. Oh, go ahead.
Mr.
I'm
Isco,
sorry.
please, yeah.
Yeah.
If I can, I
Yeah.
apologize, Mr.
No,
Taylor.
you're all right.
We received capital grant money to put pickleball courts in at Klepper.
Yeah.
That's a separate project that we discussed at the last meeting. We received a CDBG, or Community Development
Yeah.
Block Grant, to help with the playground
Yes.
at Klepper. So it's two separate projects from two different funding sources.
Okay.
And in Mr. Glisson's presentation, he indicated there was $125,000 in grant funding. That's what we're actually referring to, is that CDBG grant funding. It's $125,000 that's reimbursable for spending on the project.
That was from a year ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we didn't actually purchase any,
We haven't purchased anything yet. What you
Okay, I
authorized
thought-
previously is the application and acceptance of the grant.
that's what it was.
And then
Yes, and
Also,
so-
just so you know, the grant money for the pickleball courts strictly has to be used for the pickleball courts. Cannot be used for anything else, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know.
So unfortunately, we looked at an array of options with the Parks and Recreation Commission for what we could purchase here. Obviously, since we submitted that grant, we all know that costs and supply chains and everything has just gone out of the roof with inflation. So what we thought maybe was a $250,000 project in 2020 reasonably has suffered inflation like everything else. And so now we're looking at what the options are today. And so what the indicators review is about $380,000 worth of equipment would be pretty similar to what we have now, just newer. They're looking at asking the board, to consider this as an option that does cost a little more. At the $540,000, and I'm talking around numbers, we would be reimbursed $125,000. So you're looking at spending additional township funds to help improve the set, as opposed to just getting new to what we have now, a new version of what we have now.
All right, so there's two grants. So
Two
I was
separate
just
projects.
confused which grant was which. So it's for two separate projects, all
Correct.
kind of related.
Correct.
It's all the
Same park.
Same park.
Two different projects.
Okay.
A lot of exciting things for the park.
Yes.
Parks and Rec Committee to be looking at. And also, I think I'd say relatively, and Mr. Taylor, you can ask your history with it, but I'd say relatively new also for the township. Can you recall roughly when would be the last time a community development block grant was secured?
I believe the last time we did that was at Veterans Park, and I'm just going by memory, and I apologize for
Yeah.
the years, but we relayed all the bricks at the Veterans
Yeah, for
Memorial
the
Park.
helicopter.
For where the helicopter is, and we built a ramp
Okay.
and the pond
Okay.
for the wildlife. That was the last time, and I believe that was around, I think it was $20,000.
Yeah. And so,
Hold
okay.
on a second. Mr. Baker, did you have anything else?
Yeah, so what decision do we need to make tonight, or do we?
We're not asking you to make any
No, no
decision
decisions, just
tonight.
hearing the
This is the
Okay.
presentation,
And then
deciding
Q&A.
what they would like.
Okay, so I'm good? All right.
Mr. Luke,
No, good on that. I can hold that for later.
did you have any questions for Mr. Glisson?
Only comments is, no real follow-up questions, just, again, it echoes what the chairman said, but, thank you to you and the Recs and Park Committee. Last year, when I was able to pick up the gavel and have Trustee Dills here to be able to go out and chair the Parks and Rec Committee, and Trustee Becker's support for that, to have that citizen engagement committees, just very exciting. So it's exciting to see this process, because I think it's in the focus of looking to make Union Township the best place to live, work, and play. And I think this is, from what I'm hearing and hearing from your committees that have been meeting diligently, a very good, transparent, accountable method, and you're communicating it with the public. So thank you for you and everyone that serves. So thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, almost. I love how you guys chose to basically try your best to cater to everyone. Kids of all ages, handicapped, the shade for parents. I love that. I love the thought you put into it, the whole group put into it. Also, currently there is no playground equipment at Mount Carmel Park, correct? None. And so this would be huge to take the existing equipment, move it over there. And Mr. Taylor, do you know ballpark, how old is this current equipment at Klepper Park?
I'll say it was
Just the ballpark.
09, right around 09, 2010, maybe 09,
Okay. Okay. How long would it take to construct this park,
It's 10 to 12 weeks from,
start to finish?
basically, once the order is placed.
So we'll
It's
say
going
about,
to be 10 to 12 weeks.
we'll say about 3 months.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Sayers, when you want to put this up for a vote? What monthly meeting?
We will probably look at getting, probably June,
June?
probably
Okay.
June by the time we're
Okay.
looking at.
And then, so 540, and tell me the difference again one more time between the different turfs.
One is a poured-in-place rubber. Both of them have a cushion, so it's a soft surface.
Sure.
So falls from heights, they take that into consideration based off of the playground equipment. They figure out how much cushion or impact it needs to withstand, and then there's a covering over the top of that. The covering can either be the poured-in-place rubber, or it can be the turf. The turf, which is basically like AstroTurf, is $56,000 more. That's $596,000.
Which would be, what's the difference as far as how longevity?
Actually, the longevity for the turf was 10 to 12 years, and the poured-in-place is 12 to 15. So for more money, you're getting less wear and tear. And I think in the interest of having parks with animals that we're allowed to take there, the turf is probably a more troublesome option in case droppings are left and things aren't picked up, or on the turf, where on the poured-in-place rubber, it's more of a smooth surface that can be wiped up and cleaned up
Which is
a
the
whole
more
lot easier.
expensive one, correct? Okay, got it, okay. Gentlemen, last thing, I gotta give Mr. Glitz some credit. The QR code signs that we have implemented, 100% his idea. And he is the reason why Union Township has that now. And so, great idea, I love it. If you scan the QR code and take a picture of whatever the issue is, broken playground equipment, cracked asphalt, whatever, that goes directly to Sean and Matt's email, and we get on it immediately. And so that was a great implement. If this Park and Recreations Committee wasn't created, who knows if we would have those in place to begin with if it wasn't for Rich. So appreciate you very much on
Thank you.
that. Gentlemen, did you have something else? Please, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I missed something. So the poured-in-place rubber, or the AstroTurf, it's one or the other,
Correct.
which one was the $56,000 upgrade?
The turf,
The turf is more expensive.
correct.
Okay. But it sounds like, unless I'm reading you wrong, you're recommending going with the poured rubber.
Correct.
Which is,
Which
It has a
cheaper.
longer useful life, and in the end, I think the maintenance will be cheaper and easier.
So it's longer life, cheaper maintenance, lower cost. What's not to like here?
That's, we all thought the same
Okay.
thing. We
Okay,
all
that's a
kind of
no-brainer.
asked ourselves the same
I'm
question.
glad you asked that question, because I thought it was reversed. Okay, so what is the advantage of going with the more expensive one?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I think the port-in-place is actually newer technology, and so people are used to turf more, and I think that gets you some of it.
For dog droppings, or in this case, my favorite animal, Canadian goose droppings, which one's easier to clean up?
The poured-in-place, because it's just a flat surface.
Which is the more expensive?
It's the least
That's
expensive.
the
least
expensive.
It's the least expensive.
What
For that category.
what am I missing here?
And I believe the maintenance, if you, I don't know what Mr. Taylor has included, but there's a letter from the company where it says that the maintenance is only required every couple of years,
Yeah.
where they go back and put a new coating over the top of it and kind of touch it up and kind of revitalize it. So it's, the other one, they have to brush every so often to get the turf to stand back up.
Okay.
And with the droppings issues, I don't see the reason to spend more money on something that isn't going to be as beneficial for us.
So, want to make sure we're clear, so 540,000, and then minus the 125, you're basically asking the board to approve 415,000 ballpark,
Yep.
correct? Okay, just make sure we're all clear. Gentlemen, either one of you have any more questions at all?
No, I just want to say thank you for putting this all together. This has been very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Look forward.
So if the board has any feedback they'd like to give me before June, we'll talk about it, but that's anticipation is if there's no major concerns, we'd move forward in June.
Great, great. Mr. Glisson, excellent presentation. Good
Thank you.
job. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. McCormick, would you mind making your way up to see if there is any public comment cards? And then at this time, we'll go ahead and take any public comments on our Park and Recreations Committee finding for the playground equipment at Klepper Park. And we'll see real quick if there is any. None? Okay, roger that, perfect. We will move on. And I'll go ahead and close public comments. And gentlemen, we've already answered a bunch of questions with Mr. Glisson, but did either one of you have any?
I think she,
I'm sorry.
I think she was referencing.
Oh, yeah, no problem. If you wanted to come up and speak, yeah, would you mind filling out one of those cards for us right back there? Great, thank you.
Just carry it up with, can,
Yeah, it's
We'll
okay.
take it.
Hey there, young man, how are you? Good, how are you? Good, yes. And then if you could, yeah, then it's okay, you can fill that out as you get a chance. And then if you could, just state your name and then your address, just for the record.
Yeah. I am Bradley Marion,
Hey, Bradley.
641 Meridia Drive.
All right, perfect, Bradley. And, well, go ahead, my friend, yeah, what do you have for us?
So just kind of just upgrade some equipment, like the metal, because some certain parts are just a little rusted, Well, that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, that could be dangerous, a hazard, absolutely, yeah. Anything else at all that you like or don't like?
No?
Because you're going to be playing on this, I don't think Mr. Becker will be playing on it, or Mr. Logan will be, so.
Right there at the front. Oh, that.
Yeah, the basketball
Oh,
court.
yeah, and I just saw the basketball, you got new, flooring for the basketball court
Okay,
at the front.
so the basketball court needs to be repoured or repaved?
It
you
just
said
was.
it recently was,
It
it
just
just
was.
recently was.
Correct, that's what I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah.
so, okay, yeah, so do you like it, Bradley, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, it looks pretty cool.
That's cool? Are you playing a lot of ball?
Every now and then, when I
Okay,
get a
cool,
chance.
okay, good. Hey, maybe,
Right here.
perfect, yeah, thank you. And, well, maybe if you want to be a firefighter, you can join Union Township, because we need more basketball players on our firefighter team, so. And, but, good.
Oh, yeah, I shot a little bit, I shot some hoops at Station 49's little mini hoop.
Get out of here, did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Did you school him, did you show him a few moves?
Yeah.
You did?
I
Good
did.
man. Are you playing basketball locally?
Every now and then, right now I'm in soccer.
Oh, good man. What position do you play?
Just any position I can really get.
Nice, good for you. Good for you.
What fields do you play soccer at?
I forgot what it's called.
I don't know what it's called.
Dang it.
In Newtown?
It's,
The Newtown Fields, the Riverside Park?
Riverside.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's it, Riverside.
Riverside Park.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay. I didn't know if they had something over for you at Klepper Park there on the soccer fields there or not, so it's good information, good feedback.
I don't think so,
Yeah.
but my kids go there all the time. We ride our bikes there.
Yeah.
We live in the neighborhood. It is a really good place for them to go. And so it would be.
Are you
nice to
talking about Klepper?
Yeah.
Okay,
we-
yeah, okay.
Yeah, we go through by Summerside, go the back way through the neighborhood and right there.
Awesome,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be on that busy road because that road is a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
So definitely the updates would be nice,
Yes,
having
ma'am.
a safe place for them to go. I think that's part of one of the things as I was a kid, we used to do all the time.
I love it.
And would be there until it got dark, right, and the street
Yeah,
lights came on.
yeah.
I would like for my kids to be able to enjoy the same luxuries and be able to have access to things that are gonna be safe with the right lighting and the right equipment, so we could all have a good time.
And I would invite you and encourage you, Mr. Taylor, when's our next Park and Recreations Committee meeting? Is it right after the trustee meeting, like always?
It'll be the Wednesday after the trustees.
Okay, so our next meeting for the Park and Recreations Committee is May 10th. It's on a Wednesday, and it's going to be right out inside this room, right out, so if you go here right to the right. And basically, that group, Mr. Glisson, you just saw is up here, they're in charge of basically giving us recommendations. But I got to tell you, who plays at the parks? The kids do. Bradley, I'd like to hear more of your feedback, my friend. And so if you would like you and your mom to come, encourage it, and then you can give some feedback to the board over there. And, yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. And anything you can think of, anything. Can't hurt, right? So I love that. What school do you go to around here?
Summerside.
Summerside. Okay, good. It's a good school. Perfect. Well, Bradley, it means a lot you came up here to talk with us. Really means a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And gentlemen, I'll share with you the address they gave there. That's right where we are seeking grant funding again for sidewalks.
Oh,
For
okay.
West Clermont and around Summerside.
Awesome.
And so this will
Good
do,
looking out.
so if this grant funding gets
That's good.
approved, we're gonna be able to put some sidewalks right out in front of their house as well,
Especially-
Right,
which
for you to get to the park.
especially close to
connect all the way to the park. So,
love that.
a lot of great things going on in that area.
Yeah, tell them what you told them.
Yeah, but we also it'd also be great if they're close around like going like around the stoplight, that stop sign.
I know what you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, you got it,
I know
absolutely.
that street is busy, so.
yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Taylor, did you hear that?
That would be in the
Okay,
plans.
good.
All right.
Listen, he's
Well-
your person, he
You
will tell
got
you
it.
all the things.
Bradley, hey, it was really cool you came up here and got to speak. I really appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
coming.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you, Bradley.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. Take care.
Thank you.
And is there anyone else that would like to speak on public comments about our Klepper Park playground? Okay, I'll go and close public comments. And gentlemen, I'll open up for the board discussion. Mr. Becker, did you have anything?
Yeah, so, Mr. Taylor, we've had a report of rusty playground equipment. If we're going to be moving that to Mount Carmel Park, is there going to be some rehab involved and sanding, painting, and whatever repair is required?
We will certainly evaluate that, and any repairs that need to be made will be prior to moving,
Right.
or after the move, it will be. Yes. Yep.
All right, sounds
We'll
good.
take care of it.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Luke? I just think it's great work that the Parks and Rec Board has been doing, so appreciate hearing the questions that you guys bring up, and it's exciting for community members to see this on the forefront of something to have discussion on and look at how we can support it and collaborate and seek some grant funding. So, open it up if you got a comment.
Gentlemen, I'll be very honest, I'm 100% supportive of this. I think it's great, and I think I think the residents would like to be able to see, touch, feel, smell their tax dollars being put to use. The equipment clearly needs upgraded. We've got a beautiful park, and it's a one-time investment for roughly the next 15 years. I'm good with it, and I don't see any cons to it, so that's my thoughts. And then, Ms. Ayers, you said it'll be on the June agenda?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. And I appreciate that. As a reminder, I will not be here at our next business trustee meeting. Vice Chairman Becker will be taking over for us, and so I appreciate you waiting until June on that, Ms. Ayers. Okay, anything else, gentlemen? Okay, moving on to our second item will be our economic development, a presentation regarding new developments and economic development strategies with Mr. Caleb Bell, partner at Bricker and Graydon Law. Sir, come on up. Appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you.
Of course. Happy to do it. So very nice to see you all. My name's Caleb Bell, and I am a partner at Bricker Graydon. My role at the firm is to chair our public finance space. So public finance, as you guys are probably familiar with, involves bond financing. It involves, how do we pay for capital improvements like the park that we just talked about. It also involves evaluating projects and project development activity in your community and determining how to manage the costs and also create opportunities with all that project activity. And so I'm excited to talk about three topics today that you can go ahead to next slide, that I think will be very relevant for the trustees. And these are all, I would consider them hot topics and also topics that are directly relevant to items that I think you all are currently facing or will imminently face. ORC is the guidepost for the township. It's your book, it's your toolkit. Whatever the revised code allows you to do that's what you can do. And so it's really important to stay abreast of all the different revised code changes. There are three that we wanted to bring to your attention. The first, there's a special tax increment financing, or TIF, provision that we think would be available here in the township to increase revenue. I'll talk about that. Secondly, I'll talk a bit about the new community authority program. It is undergoing some changes right now currently in the budget bill, and those changes could be very relevant to mixed use or larger scale development projects that occur in the township. And then finally, the CRA, or Community Reinvestment Area program. That's a program about tax abatements and how you deploy abatements correctly to work on attracting businesses or retaining businesses. So we'll talk about each of those. Next slide. So the first topic is the TIF. And if you can take a peek at this map, you'll see the Ivy Point TIF. There is a special provision in law that allows for changes to this TIF. It's unique in that this TIF is what the state considers a large TIF. This TIF produces well over $1 million in revenue annually based on the current development within the Ivy Point area. And you can tell TQL's site is in there, and there are other businesses in the area. This TIF was enacted by the trustees back in 2006, and if you kind of do your math on TIFs tend to run for up to 30 years. So we're nearing, kind of the middle, and, we'll eventually get to the end of life of this TIF. This new law, which went into effect about 3 years ago, enables the township to extend this TIF into the future. That's important for a number of reasons. TIF law has changed a lot. TIF law is typically focused on payment of capital assets like roads and sewer, water, sidewalks, can be parks, can be land acquisition, things that, the township may need to do in order to kind of keep the quality and, your amenities high. The law has changed to allow TIF funds to be used for a few additional purposes which are really relevant to the township operating budget. Maintenance of roads and maintenance of sewer and maintenance of water is now an eligible use of funding. So whereas we used to have TIFs that were only for digging the hole and putting the sewer in, now TIF law allows us to dig the hole, put the sewer in, and also maintain it, and then put that road over top of it and maintain the road. And that is a very important offset available for your operating budget. And so this program is enabling an extension of this TIF. And again, it's just the Ivy Point TIF because it's just it's a special provision. It has to hit exactly certain dollar amounts and has to have been a type of TIF that was put in place at a particular time. Go ahead, next one. If you look at this, this is a recitation of the new law, 570951, and this TIF extension law allows for TIFs that had $1.5 million or more in service payments to be extended. That is available only in 1 year. It is available only in the year following the time you hit $1.5 million out of that TIF. So if we go to the Clermont County Auditor's Office and we look at all of the detail, and we talk with Ron and we figure out all of the different service payments that are paid, you'll learn that this year, 2023, is the only year that you can ever extend this TIF under law. So it's a one-time only authorization based on the way the law is set up. And so that amendment would enable the extension of the TIF for an additional 30 years. So it would run all the way out to possibly 2066. That's a very powerful exemption. It's unusual, but some other projects have used it. Projects in Cleveland, projects in Columbus have used this TIF extension. And there's only about, I'd say, a dozen sites around the state that have it available. Go ahead, next slide. So based on these, investigations that we did, we looked at Ron's records, we looked at the county auditor's records, and see that this TIF, the Ivy Point TIF, had $1.478 million in pilots, and then it tripped over that $1.5 million line, and that was for collection year 22. So here we're in collection year 23, and that is 1 year following when we tripped that line. And so the trustees have a one-time only option to extend this TIF. Recognize that it's a long TIF, and so it's normal, and the General Assembly, put it in place that these types of TIFs are non-school, which means that the school's money is left alone if you decided to do anything. So there would be no impact at all on the school revenue if this TIF extension were to occur. Go ahead and next slide. And the bottom line is, when you get to the modeling, this is a significant exemption for the township. It is a gross number of $25 million of additional funding that would be available for this, kind of one-time only law application. So in the spirit of get it while you can get it and don't miss an opportunity. It's important that we bring this to your attention so that you can consider here, still in 2023, an appropriate extension. And again, the uses of the funds would be things that can be further discussed, can be decided later, but now the law does allow for that maintenance item, which could be a really positive offset to the fiscal officer's budget for the future years. That's all I have on the TIF extension, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Mr. Becker, do you have anything?
Yeah, so the TIFs have been quite beneficial for the township for many years. They've also been controversial.
Sure.
At least in the past, there was a lot of discussion about TIFs in the community. Is there any downside to the township for extending these TIFs? Otherwise, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, it's a great question. So typically in the TIF world, we do start our decisions breaking residential use property away from commercial use property. Ivy Point is clearly in the commercial use category. Most TIF controversy, frankly, is over in the residential use category because residents mean more services are needed at both the local and county level, and also residents produce kids that go to school. Whereas for the most part, commercial stays away from most of those issues. So if we're over here in the commercial world, I will tell you that the biggest downside for the township would be that when you do a TIF exemption, any of your millage would be included in the exemption. So your own township millage does also get exempt alongside the county millage, alongside other special taxing jurisdiction millage. And so that's the thing to keep in mind. It's really, though, a math question. If we do this exemption, do we lose this revenue from our direct collection, but then get it back over here in our TIF collection? So for the township, it's really just a math and tracking question. The broader points are really about then the impact on the county or any other jurisdictions that may tax your ground. And then, are you doing things that are somewhat in furtherance of the overall community? Do you make the road network better? Do you add parks? Do you enhance density? Do you create more sales for the county to get sales tax? So on and so forth, right? So there's a lot of policy underneath TIF, trustee, but I think for the most part, the downsides are more administrative and tracking than they are about, the kind of negatives that we might think, particularly over in the residential side. So.
Because it seems like the math works out quite favorably for the township doing these. You mentioned the residentials. We do have a number of residential TIFs that are going to be running off in the next 10 years, I believe.
Yep.
Is there anything we can do or should do about that, or is it just going to run off and, it is what it is?
Well, couple thoughts. There are some flexibilities. I mentioned this law change about making sure that you can use your TIF money for maintenance of roads and sidewalks and the things that were even mentioned in comment today. Your TIFs don't have all of those provisions caught up to current law. So one thing that the trustees should do, and we'll have a recommendation on this later in the year, would be to amend the uses of your TIF funds to be a little more broad. That way you can click through some of these operating item pieces. When the TIFs expire, they expire, and 30 years is as long as you can go under current law, unless you're in one of these special TIFs that is a commercial TIF only, and it happens to be the right size. And the only one you will be eligible for in that respect is Ivy Point. So there aren't any other extensions that are available. Law change is the only other avenue, and the General Assembly has been fairly active in TIF. There is a provision in the current budget bill that would allow municipalities to take residential TIFs and extend them for 15 more years. That hasn't been enacted. It hasn't even made it through the conference, process because it hasn't gotten through the Senate piece yet. But one might consider understanding that, okay, if the municipalities get that power and the Township Association comes along and asks for it as well, it may be possible that TIF extensions are in the future. And that's important for a lot of the townships in this neck of the woods because TIFs have been used fairly heavily for residential-focused townships like yourselves. So,
Great, that's been quite informative, thank you.
no problem.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Luke?
Yeah, just real quick with that, Caleb, thanks for identifying the Ohio Revised Code 5709.51, this law that was enacted in 2020, and last year when Bricker Graydon came on board to really kind of jump on looking at the 54 TIF districts and seeing what strategically needs reviewed and updated and kind of turn the lights on. Sounds like this is a fruit from that labor, so I think that's great. So thanks for the team on that.
Of course, yes.
Identifying, again, the potential, what the board's decision is there, but it sounds like $25 million for the commercial TIF area. Administrative and tracking, you said that there's a negative side to that.
Sure.
This is a comment that I've heard as well. Have you seen other communities basically fund that administrative and tracking? Because it's got to be small dollars of administrative costs if it's generating $25 million over 30 years. But is it county salary, or like who do we have to make happy on that if they're having those burdens and concerns?
Sure, that's a great question. So there's really two constituencies that are really important. One is your fiscal officer. Your fiscal officer has the responsibility of tracking all the different TIF funds, and your fiscal officer certainly can get staff, resources, support from professionals. Occasionally, what we will see fiscal officers for communities like yours that have a number of TIFs do is just do a TIF audit and check all the different factors and parameters. One shouldn't assume that despite their very best intentions and valiant efforts, that everything is correct at the county level, because this is a technical area. It's an area where a building can come online and it can be not applied for correctly by the township or by the property owner. It could be missed by a staff person. These are unfortunately not uncommon errors. There are a fair number of TIFs that just have a little tweak that need to occur. Somebody needs to look out for the tweaks, and that's the point of TIF administration or getting a little extra resource occasionally, once every 4 or 5 years. Have a TIF audit done to just make sure that everything's running smoothly. Certainly that's something we could do, but that's one constituency. It's making sure all that's running well. Also, the fiscal officer may have to make payments to third parties in some cases, and that can be an issue with TIF. Does the office have enough resources, and is everything running smoothly so that when you get the settlements coming in, you're making the payments right? So that's an area. The other constituency is the county auditor. County auditor's office has a very important responsibility in tracking the values, implementing the tax commissioner's rulings on TIF correctly. I would tell you that your county auditor has excellent data. It is a gold star check mark next to your county auditor's data, because it is much easier to obtain data about TIFs and tax abatements in your county than it is in most counties. So I applaud your county auditor for that, just from a practitioner's perspective. But the county auditor can run into questions, issues, and you just have a lot of volume, right? Columbus, Ohio has 170 TIFs. You all have 50. You have a lot for the size of community that you are. So I just, encourage you to do that little bit of spend in the area of administration, because sometimes you can definitely find the money or fix the error, and it will just resolve itself in the found money part. So.
Okay, thank you for that information. Gentlemen, I'd like to just share to both of you, it piques my mind when he referenced this and talking like a 4 to 5 year type of audit, or the two constituencies there between fiscal office and auditor. So it's actually the auditor's office that highlighted to me in prior years, when it's before your time on the board, that the police and fire levy went through, and with that, it was allocated for, I believe it was $4.4 million to bring in. And why am I saying this? I say this because there was no look at and communication essentially on a residential TIF. And so, for example, I asked it was like, explain it to me, and they said, well, like Polo Fields has a residential TIF. I live there. Okay, so I go out and I vote just like anyone else, for or against the police and fire levy. It passed, they both passed. Everyone's millage or whatever went up at the same rate. However, I live in a residential TIF, so my tax dollars that went and it increased, I'm paying them, they get reverted back to the township TIF fund. And the question I had, and the question I worked is essentially what you're saying, it was an ad hoc audit. We worked with our fiscal office, and I said, Ron, can we dig into this and take a look at this? You know, is this valid or accurate and what's going on here? Because roughly $300 million of property valuation in the residential TIF, and what did it yield? It yielded that $750,000 of new tax dollars from the police and fire levy were going to be returned to the TIF funds because of the residential TIF. So though the police and fire levies were calculated to support $4.4 million, and that's what the voter voted for, it actually generates a little over $5.1 million because of the way the residential TIF impacts essentially the bottom line. So it's just something that's, yeah, you get technical, as, you know, Mr. Bell was just saying. I'm not gonna jump down in the weeds with it.
That's
but
right.
I think that, I hear in what you said, the two constituencies to account for and take care of, the fiscal office, and, you know, I've heard that, what maybe administrative burden there is from the county auditor's office. If we've got 54 TIFs, Ron, you know, what type of resources do we need to help and support or give that helps be a nice collaborative relationship there, that they're not picking up our administrative costs maybe? I'm not pro work on that, I'm just saying, it's the question. So I'm just gonna put that on the table, but we don't need an answer right now, just kind of a thought. But I see you, Ron, I see you churning on something, so you're more than welcome,
Well, no,
obviously.
I mean, a lot of that we do every year, and, you know, he's talking about these third-party agreements and some of the developer agreements and stuff, things like that we have in some of our TIF districts. So we have to review every year, you know, what phase of the development you're in, if you have a multifaceted development, you know, it's not static, things change, and you have to review those. And it's something actually Susan and I have been talking about with, you know, some of the staffing. It's just manual. You got to read the documents. I mean, you got to go put the work in to make sure you're not missing something. To Caleb's point, you know, an oversight, clerical error, you know, could be costly. We do our best. I mean, I've got 2 people on staff now, and we're busy. It's a busy place. Union Township's big. We got a lot of TIFs. I mean, I think we got 54 TIFs. So it's just something you got to stay on top of. I mean, every year something new for the fiscal office. I mean, it's just the way it works. And you know, down the road we might have to do something different. I don't know. Right now we're making it. I've always you know, been proud of that. You know, Cindy and I for a long time. I mean, she's as good as they come. And you know, as we took on more of the HR role and that kind of thing, we added Ms. Cobb. She's really quick learner. She's coming on board with us here, and valuable asset. But for, you know, you look at the rest of the communities our size in comparison, you know, they have 7, 8 people in their fiscal office. We've got, you know, 2 and myself. So, you know, I think the residents get a good, you know, they're getting their money's worth out of us, out of me, for sure. I like to do it or I wouldn't do it. I mean, you've heard me say it before. You know, I retired from Ford. I don't need this job, but I like to do it, and I think it's a way of giving back. I'm big on protecting the senior citizens. That's, you know, one of the things that drives me. I think that the seniors, you know, they've raised their families here, they've paid their taxes, they did what they're supposed to do. I don't want to see anybody run out of their property because they can't afford to pay taxes or whatever for all the infrastructure that's going on. One other point, and I'll make it short. He's talking about the give back and the money on the residential TIFs. You know, one thing to keep in mind is now, with some of the law changes, you know, we're allowed to use that money for safety services salaries. So again, you know, police, fire, you know, we get a lot of calls here. Union Township's a busy place, and that's one of the things that, you know, we tried to structure agreements around was, you know, we benefit the whole community and not just one particular district. So I think we've taken advantage of that. You know, that's the offset to where Mr. Logue was going, and a nice one. I mean, you know, if anyone listens to what I say up here, the biggest burn we have is the police and fire. and I think that's true in most communities. And, due to the, type of equipment, all the firehouses, to try to get all the reaction time where it needs to be, it's an expensive venture to have a fire department and a police department, and we've got two of the best, so, again.
Well, hey, thank you, Mr. Campbell. And just, I guess, to close that, on the TIF conversation, or to give Chairman Dills the floor there, I just appreciate both of you guys taking a look at this and hearing from, Caleb, everyone, because it sounds like you guys turned the lights on what is a potential $25 million decision that started with the board here saying, hey, take a look at it. So I think that's phenomenal. And happy to hear that you talk the Gold Star information for the
Sure.
county auditor's office.
And trustee, the last thing I would want to do is bring a suggestion like this to you guys quickly. So we did want to explain this and make sure that you were aware of what it was, because it's time limited. It can only be done in '23.
Yeah. Please, yeah.
You both asked a lot of questions. There's no way I can come up with any more. Well done. Good job, guys. And Mr. Campbell, Cindy and Shelley, love them. Hopefully they stay here for a very, very long time. Thank you for you and your team. And I agree with you. Our auditor's great, does a good job. Ms. Fraley would appreciate your praise. So that's all I got. We'll move on to the next
Okay.
topic, sir.
Yep, next topic.
Let's go ahead.
So NCAs, new community authorities, are a very interesting development tool that is becoming important, and I would say critical in some cases, to make large-scale developments work correctly. New community authorities refer to a special development entity that is formed by local government in order to govern the development parameters surrounding a particular site. So think of a mall, think of a blank piece of ground that a developer is going to master plan and develop. That's kind of sort of the case study in community authority use. Here in Southwest Ohio, there are a number of community authorities. Two prominent examples would be Liberty Center. That development there has a community authority on it. Another example that may be familiar is Union Village in Warren County, where the Otterbein Retirement Homes site is there outside Lebanon. That's an example of a community authority. That tool creates an opportunity for the developer to work with local government to essentially rewrite the way that taxes are done on that site. And the important part of that is it's really an assessment tool, so it's added tax. It's not really like TIF that diverts tax to another direction. And that's important because that helps with our school conversations and our county conversations. So a community authority might be formed as a governmental entity that has a development plan for a particular site, and it might, as an example, add 3 mills of property tax or 5 mills of property tax on that site. And it's important that you recognize that it's on that site because it's voluntary. This is where the property owner is agreeing to assess themselves in order to create a revenue stream that can be used to pay for things that they need. And so when you start to see the design of this tool, you can see, oh, this is really a self-help mechanism. This is a way for a property owner to activate the tax system and create more taxes that are site-specific that don't take away anybody else's taxes. So that's important. It's a self-help mechanism to really amplify development. Right now, under law, the community authority tool cannot be used by a township. It is only available for municipalities and counties. And when these developments occur in unincorporated areas, like the example I gave outside Lebanon, up there in Warren County, the county actually forms the community authority. However, under the current budget bill, there is a law change that I believe the township has supported, which would help with townships like yours in urban and urbanizing areas that would enable you all to directly create a community authority just like a municipality can. And that's important because it puts you in the driver's seat of your own development. So not only are you able to work directly with a developer who is activating a self-help mechanism, but you are also the ones in the driver's seat as the government in charge. And that's important for control reasons and for partnership reasons and for site selection and a whole host of reasons. Go ahead, next slide. NCAs have the power, again, to put charges on properties within the boundaries of the community authority. I gave an example of millage, but that's just one example. A site-specific sales tax for retail sales is also available. That's what goes on at Liberty Center. Liberty Center has a site-specific sales tax where any of the users of Liberty Center who come along and use all the amenities, they buy something there, they pay a little bit more in the sales tax, and that's used by the community to pay for the roads, the infrastructure, and parking, which was necessary to create Liberty Center. So again, think about this as augmenting or adding to the county sales tax in that case. It's also possible to do bed taxes. So if you had a hotel that were in a development site, that hotel could have 2% or 3% added to it through the community charge system. So this system is really about creating self-help remedies for the developer to go through the process of creating more revenue to pay for needed infrastructure. And it's also about the community being able to create additional revenue streams like sales taxes or bed taxes as examples that can be used for, again, these goals. One of the reasons why I personally do work with community authorities and think that they're a pretty good tool to use is that it is pretty much user-based, right? The people who pay this are the people who are using the facility. So your residents over here don't have to pay for the new development over here. Rather, the people who find their way into the new development and use the new development and pay and buy something there, or they perhaps they rent property there, those folks pay for the new development. That's a pretty good exchange, right? It means your old and your new can talk to each other and be happy and friendly. So that's an important philosophical piece behind these community authorities. A couple advantages. We talk about community authorities can finance public improvements, and they also have bonding capacity. So instead of you all having to bond for infrastructure or you all having to access credit for infrastructure, the development entity itself can. And so that's important because it's offloading something that otherwise is a responsibility of the township to pay. So creating that special system that can access the markets directly is powerful. You control all this, by the way, in your governance of the community authority, because you all, assuming this law change passes, you all would be the party that approves the formation, approves the charter, populates the majority of the board. So you all contain development control in many respects through the partnership that you form with your development partners. Go ahead and take next slide. I mentioned Liberty Center as a an important local example. Another one, Spooky Nook. Spooky has a community authority there, and you can just imagine a site like a mall site. Think of the Eastgate Mall as an example. If that mall is undergoing transition, or it has new ownership, or it has an opportunity to densify, those are all important catalytic events that may need this type of tool to create a spot-specific sales tax, or perhaps a little more property millage, so that site can support itself instead of you all subsidizing that site. And so that's a little bit of the theory of how these things work. I think this is the last NCA slide. Yep, that's right. So you want to flip back then? Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. An
Sure.
explanation. I wanted to ask you first, so the community authority tax, the layman's terms, it's basically a user tax.
Correct.
I go to a restaurant, I buy a meal, and basically there's $1 added onto my bill.
Correct.
I'm just using an example,
That's
right?
right. Mhm.
If I don't go to that restaurant, I don't buy food, I do not pay tax.
Correct.
The extra tax you're talking about,
That's right.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, so gentlemen, I'll tell you, as a conservative Republican, I hate taxes, hate paying taxes, unless I absolutely have to. but you gotta give to Caesar what's Caesar. Taxation's theft, but I like a user tax. I think,
I like this guy.
because if I don't wanna buy it, I don't pay the dollar tax, assuming it's $1, whatever the number is.
And you need to know what it is on the front end, so when you go there, you can say, oh, I'm gonna buy this thing, and, but if you have disclosure, it's, you know, okay, I know what I'm getting into when I go buy this.
Yeah, correct. So if I don't want it, I won't pay tax on it, whereas all their taxes are forced, basically. So, okay, fair enough. And also my understanding, just for the record, the law hasn't changed yet.
That's correct.
When are we anticipating?
So that is part of the current administration-supported budget bill amendments. So the budget bill has been put together, and these provisions have been included in the House version and also the House reconciled version. It'll now go to the Senate. Once the Senate okays these changes, we will get it up to the governor. So it is on track and supported by the relevant legislators so far.
Any feedback at all as far as how the House and Senate feels overall?
My understanding is that House is fine with this approach. I think that there is some conversation about is it appropriate for all townships? People are saying, no, it's not appropriate for very rural townships. It's really more appropriate for your type of township, which has a high level of relatively high level of service and a high number of population and so on and so forth. So there are some parameters that make this law change not available to every township, but available to certain townships.
Got it.
And
then
you fit the
also-
bill. You're in the right size and county location. So.
And does it have to be specifically used on undeveloped sites?
I'm sorry.
Does it have to be specifically used on undeveloped sites?
No.
So
Community.
if we had existing,
Yeah.
for example, you said Eastgate Mall.
Sure. Mhm.
Eastgate Mall is existing, is it able to be put on there effective tomorrow, assuming the law's passed, or the budget bill's passed?
With the property owner's consent. So the
Okay,
the
got it.
property owner needs to acknowledge and okay that. And so in the case of an existing operating mall, you might have tenant arrangements that need to be worked out for that.
Got it, okay.
So, yeah, that's the nature of it.
Where does the money go? Does it come back does it come back directly to the township? And then, that's my first question, like, who gets, so the dollar that I buy at my burger,
Yep.
where does that dollar go?
That dollar goes to the community authority fiscal officer. So it becomes a little mini government that is in place for that site. So the money goes to that fiscal officer to be used in accordance with the rules that you all have pre-approved.
I see.
So there are parameters. Think about it like you guys charter this entity. And within those parameters, that's where you can use the money.
On that site?
On that site, or in support of that site. It can be money that is deployed for a cost outside of the physical boundaries, but it is necessary or in support of the site, such as an interchange improvement outside of the boundaries of a site.
Okay, so, but to go to Mr. Campbell's point a little bit ago, we could not use that money to help fund police fire, even though they might service that particular
You
site.
could with a service agreement with the police and fire system, so the township could enter into a service agreement with the community authority to cause services to be provided and paid for.
see.
So it is possible to use community authority charges for general township operating purposes with the correct agreements in place.
Last question I have is there a limit? Is there an expiration date?
No, this law has been stable and in effect since the 60s. The history of it is, it was for hippies that were creating communities out in the country. And nobody did that. And then Les Wexner came along and they developed New Albany, and they used the community authority system to develop it more as a user-based tool. It's been stable since the 90s, and there's probably 50 or 60 community authorities in existence in the state.
Fair enough. So basically, it doesn't expire.
Doesn't expire, it goes along, the law is available, the tax continues, the tax can sunset, the tax can be ordered to expire. That is common when community authorities are used in new residential, that there is a sunset on the tax, so that it's a specific buy-in concept.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Yes.
Gentlemen, that's all I have. Mr. Becker, do you have anything?
Well, you covered it pretty well, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've never heard of this. This is fascinating.
I love it, yeah.
So under, if I heard you correctly, under current law, the county can establish this NCA, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
For unincorporated territory, so.
So is there an advantage to, so if the law changes and allows the township to do it, is there an advantage to the township versus the county doing it?
Certainly, I would think that there'd be an advantage to the township doing it for the reasons of board population, board control, and the site is in your community. So you have alignment with other things such as capital planning to develop the area, zoning and other considerations that are relevant to the development of the site, parking, amenities. Those are all things that you all would have that kind of direct need to control.
Can I
Go
insert,
right ahead.
I apologize,
Yeah,
I don't want
uh-huh.
to interrupt. The other thing that's really big in my opinion in the world according to Susan is the timing issue. Business works really quickly, and if we want to be able to work at the speed of business, we don't also want to say, hey, this is what we want to do as a township, now take however long the county needs to evaluate it as well. If we just have the one stop and we can control it ourselves, we can move a lot quicker at the speed of business. And so sometimes those timing delays can make a big difference in getting a good deal done and being able to compete with, let's say a developer wants to put in a significant investment, they're looking at a city or they're looking at a township. Well, the city has this ability to do it, determine it themselves, do it quickly, versus the township that says, hey, I have to decide this, I then have to go to the county. Some of that becomes important in trying to get the right developer in the right location.
Yeah, this all makes good sense. Hopefully, it'll stay in the budget to, it stays in, and that'll give us some options we don't currently have.
Yep.
Did it pass the House today, went over to the Senate?
Yeah, it's in the bill
Okay.
currently. It's in the
So-
bill that's in front of the Senate. Yeah.
As you know, between the Senate and then the conference committee and then line item vetoes, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
That's right.
I've seen crazy stuff happening along this.
Including
All
a
right.
budget that's adopted after the deadline.
All right, thank you.
When is the deadline? Do you know, Mr. Baker?
Deadline for what?
June
The
30th.
budget.
I had June 30th as we signed the law.
Excellent, okay, soon. All right. Mr. Logan?
Yeah, thank you. Trustees, sounds like we're on agreement on user's tax, which is great. And I'm gonna ask Mr. Bell a question here. I just have one comment first, to both of you as we're talking about where this is at in law. It sounds like you're both interested and supportive of the new community authority. I've actually been placing calls into Representative Schmidt while this has been in the House to keep status and help push, because she's, with the committee she's on. So she called right before this meeting to say, hey, it passed through and it's over to Senate now, to keep the pressure on Senator Terry Johnson. So I would say, gentlemen, pick up the phone, call Senator Terry Johnson, say, hey, just checking this new community authority is staying in there. Because I have heard why keep that pressure on, and also the lobbyist for the township. But there are some county commissioners that are against it. They're against it because they want that control. And so this takes it to where townships greater than 5,000 in population have the
Correct.
ability to establish a new community authority. So, I mean, we're obviously well above 5,000, so if they have to have any type of things that shake out in the final law, I think that, a reasonable population measure we're going to be over top of. But hearing that some county commissioners are against it and speaking out against it and lobbying their way, it's not best for Union Township. So that's why I've been picking up the phone and making phone calls on it. So you guys, please, let's bring that one home for Union Township. So I think it gets to my interesting question on more in the weeds real fast. And if you just keep it to like 2 minutes.
Sure.
I thought this was very interesting, alternative financing. It ends up being a new tool in our competitiveness, what we're talking about with timeline, not having to go through the county, and then resources that we have. And I saw here, charges are often levied by request of private developers seeking to tax themselves to pay for projects. Private developers are seeking alternatives to traditional financing in a period of historically higher interest rates. Could you just give a snapshot of that? Because the way I interpret that is it's a great tool and something competitive for us to have, but can you?
If you are a private developer and you have a $10 million sewer or road or site cost, that's a cost you have to put into your deal somehow. And when you're a bank and you lend to a developer, you want to lend for the thing that creates a bunch of value, the private asset. And so the developers tend to have to use more equity and more of their own cash to cover these extraordinary expenses that are 30-year items. So there's a mismatch in the financial markets. This tool helps you get over that long-term asset with long-term financing. And so the developer is better able to deploy their equity into the project and obtain that better financing. One way to step back, trustee, and look at community authorities is that it helps amenify, or it helps enhance the quality of where those dollars can get to. If the developer has no help, that 10 million is going to come out of the quality asset. You all have an interest in making that quality asset as quality as possible. So this is just a tool, a way to help them, the development community access that higher quality with the same dollar, essentially.
Thank you. And I think the way I hear you say that, just a quick follow-up on that. You're giving the example of, if it's infrastructure, sewer, the type of, that's traditionally where you're closing the gap, or you're helping.
Correct.
So the developer's not paying whatever 7% on that long-term investment.
Yeah.
But is it open for, if it's the whole $10 million project, not just sewer?
Yeah.
Hey, we want to come to you for the new community authority, and this is how the tax, whatever, would work out for the payment structure of the whole, do they have to go to the bank, basically, or can it be alternative financing for the 100% of the project cost?
Because it's a tax lien item, these charges ultimately are secured by the property. Ultimately, they're secured by the ground. That's a very powerful tax lien that can be sold to the capital markets in exchange for financing. So a bond can be issued off the basis of these revenue streams. That's exactly what happened at Spooky, and it's exactly what happened at Liberty Center. The third-party financing market, the capital markets, the bond market, funded a lot of the assets that were in support of those sites. A little part of your question is about what assets can you pay for, and that is completely up to the community and the developer to develop out. There are certain legal parameters. For example, you can't pay for the true private commercial office portion, but you can pay for the parking in support of the commercial office portion. So the money sorts itself.
Okay.
The eligibility of this money is available, and then the private financing goes to where the private assets are. The money sorts itself.
Okay.
Does that make
Great.
sense?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Mr. Bell, thank you, and then we'll move on to your next item, your third item.
The last item today is a bit about the CRA statute. CRA is the Community Reinvestment Area or Tax Abatement Statute. And this statute allows for improvements to property to become exempt through an abatement that would be authorized by local government. CRAs are an old program. It's a program that's been around for a long time. Currently, the CRAs that are in effect in your township are administered by the county. However, go ahead, next slide. This CRA law changed, effective just this month, to enable CRAs to be administered directly by limited home rule townships. So if you are a limited home rule township, as you are, you may directly create a CRA area, and you may directly administer your own tax abatement program. This, again, I think is a bit about what do you want to do in the development world when you are forming partnerships and relationships with companies and businesses. If we can think about a example company, let's just take TQL as an example. A tax abatement for a new headquarters expansion at TQL might be a limited tax abatement, 10%, 20%, small tax abatement. But in order for you to even offer that small tax abatement, in order to encourage the environment for them to locate here and not in Kentucky, you have to go to the county, do an application through the county, get the county to okay it, yourselves have to okay it, and then an agreement can occur. The law has streamlined out the county already. The law has now permitted you to administer this directly if you would like to. Next, if you want to go to the next slide, Susan, I'll give you, actually go to the next slide after that.
Sure.
This is just, map township, but the current county CRA is in this small kind of area right there that covers the Ivy area. Possible additional CRAs could be created in the township. And so this law change gives you an opportunity to take control of your own economic development future and directly negotiate any of those arrangements. if you ever want to deploy them. Tax abatements are challenging. This is not an area where you want to just go right in and give away an abatement. But oftentimes they are the needle mover or difference maker between one site and another for a large employer. And you all have an interest in, I think, identifying appropriate development for your available sites. And so it's possible that you may need the tax abatement program to do that. With the new law change, you may create your own CRA area, and that's just the power of the trustees to do. You may also work with the county to either have them continue to administer your CRA program or request that they back off of your CRA program and allow you to administer it directly. So you have options that were never available before as of April 3rd. So again, the General Assembly is, I think, understanding that townships of a certain type have a need to do development activity themselves, and we have laws that are in support of that, future making that you all can do on your own. So.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Gentlemen, I'm pretty familiar with tax abatement, so I'll just go and defer it over. Mr. Becker, go ahead.
I don't have anything on the CRAs. I did want to go back later on before we close on a different topic.
I'm going to move forward. Yeah.
Great. So do we have any questions for Mr. Bell at all?
We'll go back. I did have one last question on the TIFs.
Mhm.
So what we talked about, the special TIF, and it only applied to TQL. We talked about residential TIFs. We got a handful of those.
Yep,
In total, we got, 50 some odd TIFs.
correct.
So, it sounds maybe there's I don't know, 3 dozen maybe, other TIFs that we
Yes.
haven't talked about. When those expire, can those get extended also, or is it a different program for that, or what are our options when those come up?
Almost all of your TIFs are already 30-year TIFs. So almost all of your TIFs will expire, and then there's nothing else after that. The property tax reverts to the regular distribution of tax.
So they can't be renewed.
They cannot be renewed unless the General Assembly continues tinkering with the law. We are seeing active tinkering with the TIF law. We are seeing for the first time TIF extension legislation. That's the source of the 51 law change. That is extension legislation, but it's very specific for very large TIFs. So again, if the General Assembly does allow this municipal change that just popped up in the amended Senate bill, or the amended House bill, to allow municipalities to extend residential TIFs for 15 years, it's very possible that in this current bill, townships could get that authority, in which case you'd want to go and actively work through TIFs. So you just don't have the authority to do that right now under statute, and alternatives to preserving that revenue would have to be considered, and there aren't any great ones. TIF is a very it's measured in time, and those base years of the original years of authorization of the TIF, they are what they are. So that's locking in time what those base years are, and how long these TIFs can go is just currently bounded by statute as 30 years. So unless we get some law change, it's unlikely that you'll have other TIF extensions in your future.
All right, well, it was my understanding that it was only the residential TIFs that could not be extended. But, so you're saying I was wrong about that? So
Correct.
the TQL TIF, out of all that we have, the 50 some odd we have, only the TQL TIF can be extended. That's what you're
Correct.
saying?
That is correct.
I was not aware of that. Okay, thank you.
Is it TQL, we can say, or is it
It's
Ivy Point?
truly the Ivy
Ivy
Point
Point,
area. It
okay.
just happens to be where TQL is located.
I see,
It is
okay.
a broader area. That map.
I just wanted to
you can
confirm it,
actually-
okay,
so-
yeah, it wasn't the TQL site.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you're good, yeah. Ms. Lloyd, do you have any more questions for him?
No.
Okay, good. Mr. Bell, thank you. Great presentation and answering all of our questions.
Of course.
And I'm very impressed with your knowledge, so
Yeah.
well done, sir, very much.
Happy to do it. It's a pleasure anytime. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Bell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
All right, and then, Mr. McCormick, would you mind making your way back up there for public comment? And then, I'll go ahead and take, if there's anybody that would like to comment, go ahead and fill out a comment card for us, and we'll grab your information.
Mr. Bell, you stick around? If there's a tough question that comes up right now, public comment.
Mr. Bell, would it be okay if you just stuck around a little bit longer, just in case I got to throw another question at you that might come up? Yeah, just in case. So, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Not, as soon as we get done, you can take off. Yeah, appreciate you very much. Well, perfect. Well, we all know who Mr. McGraw is. Come on up, Mr. McGraw. And then go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Trustee Dills. John McGraw, 4604 Blainfield Court.
Yeah, perfect.
I was just going to add on to your discussion here. Another economic tool that we've used in the past, is for your knowledge, is something called a special improvement district. Those are an option also. We also enacted the ability to do an energy special improvement district to an ESID, that's called. So if, say, a new business comes in and wants to deploy solar panels on top of their building, there are certain parameters for it, but they could participate in that too. Or maybe there's a neighborhood that wants sidewalks, they don't have them now, they want to put sidewalks in, they could do a special improvement district also, where the homeowners would pay for the sidewalks through the assessment of that special improvement district. So that's another tool, not quite as elaborate as what he was describing with, for a mall property or something, but it is something that we've used before that's, I think, a valuable tool. So I just wanted to add that in.
Mr. McGraw, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, sir. And Mr. McCormick, was that the only public comment card? Excellent, okay. And is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight about this topic? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments. Gentlemen, I'll open up for the board for board discussion. 3 items. We'll keep it to. So we have the Ivy Point TIF, which is where the TQL site is at. There's the community authority tax. I'm also going to call it, my words, the user tax. And then also there is the community reinvestment, basically tax abatements. Those 3 topics. And Mr. Vice Chair, I'll throw it over to you, sir.
I think my heart skipped a beat during the previous discussion. So we got, what, 54 TIFs?
54.
So if I'm understanding this correct, if I heard this right, of the 54 TIFs, only 1 can be extended. So the other 53 are going to expire.
Correct.
So when that happens, what happens? I mean, where are we fiscally when 53 TIFs expire?
So the TIF goes away and then everything reverts back to standard property tax. So it'll be collected. People are still going to pay taxes. It's just not going to come to the township through the pilot payments. It'll go back to the county and it'll be distributed through the county the way that normal taxes do.
That's going to be a hell of a hit on the revenue of the township, isn't it?
There will be some consequences, yes.
Well, I'm concerned about that. Okay.
That's also some of the point of developing some of the new additional revenue streams. So there could be additional TIFs, that could be additional JEDs, it could be this new community authority to help generate additional varied revenue streams. And for example, the new community authority that does not expire. And so it's an attempt to try and diversify the revenue streams for the township to make sure we're able to continue to provide services. And these TIFs also all are scattered. So this is not, today we're getting $50 million, tomorrow we get nothing. This is not as extreme as that. But the idea is to try and work to replace that revenue and diversify our revenue streams to be able to avoid any of those negative consequences down the line.
Thank you. That's all I have.
That's all you got? Okay. Mr. Lowe, go ahead.
I couldn't have said that better myself, Ms. Ayers, so that's exactly what I was recalling on that. And Trustee Becker, I guess kind of common phrase I used at one point last year was, driving the truck towards what you're talking about with the revenue, but let's get Caleb Bell and part of the Bricker and Graydon team in here to turn the lights on and make sure that, any resources that Mr. Campbell needs to be able to chart what that future looks like. And I think that this team's on top of it and moving that direction forward. So I know, and you can tell me this isn't part of the 3 items. We just heard a comment on Special Improvement District and ESID. I'll just point to both of you. I believe the specific SID there, Special Improvement District Fund 18 that you see on the monthly, and that's that Terrace Ridge neighborhood area. And that initially paid for, it's a really interesting one, that initially paid for Round Bottom Crossing, Beechwood Crossing Round Bottom at that intersection, and to lay in costs for that. And right now, if you watch the fund, it's about $300,000 plus. And with the new shotgunned homes in there with Brookstone homes, that was something that was never kind of a part of it. But every new property owner right now that buys new homes they're building in there, they're gonna be paying $300 a year for the next 10 years. So you said you don't like taxes. Just keep it in mind, the residents there, that's the example of the special improvement district. So that's one. And the other one was the energy SID, and that was for Cooper's Hawk, that was approved and pushed forward but fell when 2020, 2020 had kind of a change in the market with all the changes with COVID, and Swenson's ended up with that property. So just that's background on that. So I don't know if any of you have something that you would open it up for Mr. Bell if there was something to think, but I think what they're talking here is exactly what Ms. Ayers was just referencing, or, the diversification of revenue for the new tool with the TIF, the new user taxes you reference, and tax abatement, and how we can look at this moving forward. So I think we'll just keep it at that, and I think that's great. I think everyone's doing great work there. So,
That it?
yeah.
Good, thank you, sir. Mr. Bell, you can just stay there, but I forgot one question. So the Ivy Point TIF, that is currently law, and we are allowed to vote on that, let's say, next month? Correct. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. Well, gentlemen, I will not, I've got my Air Force tour next month, and I will not be here. However, if I was, and if this item was on the agenda next month, I want you to know I'd absolutely be in favor of the Ivy Point TIF being extended. Just want you to both to know that. And so, I'll leave that up to Ms. Ayers, whether we put it on next month or wait till June when I come back. But either way, I just want you to know I'll be absolutely in favor of that. I think I've made it clear, I'm not in favor of JEDs. I'd like to use them sparingly and as like a last resort. Not saying I would be absolutely against it, but what I am saying is that a JED, I would be as basically a last resort if we had to get a deal done. Last resort. I love, because I just don't think, we live in a township, we don't live in a city. And I think it's unfair to tax employees a city tax when they don't live in a city. I'm just fundamentally against it. However, the user tax, love it. You don't like it, don't go there. You like it, go there. If you don't mind the extra, I'm just gonna keep using the word, $1 as the amount. I love it. Tax abatement, same thing as a JED, similar. I like it to get a deal done if we're competing against other townships or other municipalities, and other cities. I like it to still be a kind of a last resort item. I don't like to, pick winners and losers when it comes to tax abatements. So again, kind of like a JED, in my opinion, it should be kind of a last resort item to get a deal done. I understand it has to sometimes, especially if we're competing against other areas of the city to get a large corporation to come in. Sometimes you have to do that. And I'm not saying I'm 100% against it, I'm just saying I like it to be a last resort. So, just my personal opinion. So I'll close it up with that. I'm actually gonna add an item on here. Gentlemen, this is, I kinda like the free talking. Last item is before we close out and adjourn. Any old business that anybody would like to talk about freely, before we adjourn? Anything at all? Mr. Look, anything?
I'm set.
Okay. We've got Miss Ayers, remind me, and remind everyone, is that this Saturday's our movie night?
This Saturday, April
Okay.
29th at 8 PM.
Cool. Can we keep, our social media group, can we just keep blasting that out? And
Yep.
gentlemen, let's keep sharing that. Please, anyone else see that, sharing that. It's a free movie night. Where's it at, Miss Ayers?
It's gonna be at Clermont Park, and
Yep.
we're showing, it is oh, goodness, the name is gonna elude me. The Kurt Warner,
Yeah. What's that
movie,
called? What's that called?
American Underdog. I
American
apologize.
Underdog. Good. It's it's got good morals and values in the movie. And draft day is this Friday?
Football, the draft opens on Thursday. So
Thursday,
We're having
Thursday.
football fun. Their Cool Dice food truck's gonna be there with hot dogs and hamburgers, stuff to buy.
Yep.
And then Kona Ice will be there, and the township sponsoring some Kona Ice for people
Love
that
it.
attend.
Kona Ice for everyone for free. I probably can't have too many. I get a brain freeze, but it's there for the community. All the Kona Ice we want. Free movie night. Is this the first time we've ever done a movie night, Mr. Campbell? Do you recall?
I believe so.
I believe so. Awesome. And a free Kona Ice. I don't recall the township ever doing that
Food
either.
trucks.
Well,
Food
yeah,
truck-
and
food
food
truck- but all that's
food
new.
trucks
All
are
that's
free though.
new.
You gotta pay.
Well,
You gotta pay our hot dog. But
yeah.
yes, correct. Food
Yeah.
trucks. I love it.
It's all
I love
exciting.
it. And great stuff. And that's this Saturday. What time?
ask people arrive around 8 o'clock. The movie's probably gonna start about 8:30. That's a function of when the sun goes down.
When the sun goes down.
So we
All right.
asking people to arrive about 8 o'clock, get settled, get your cone of ice and your food.
Excellent.
Movie start about 8:30.
Excellent, perfect. And I will be there. So, good deal. Next Board of Trustee meeting is Tuesday, May 9th at 6 PM, right here in this room. Mr. Becker, thank you for taking over that meeting, and appreciate it. I will be tuning in. I just won't be able to be here. And that is all. Gentlemen, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Campbell, roll call.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Mr. Dills?
Yes,
We're adjourned at 7:30 PM.
good job, guys. Good
Thanks,
meeting.
gentlemen.
Great work.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Bell.